Part 1. The Waiver was waiting beside the coffin. The first thing my family placed beside my grandfather's coffin was not a wreath. It was a signing table, waiting for me to sign away the Marlowe shares he left in my name. White roses stood at both ends of the chapel. Black ribbons hung from the marble pillars. 300 guests had come to pay respect to Augustus Marlowe, the man who built Marlowe Foods from one cold storage truck and a stubborn refusal to sell rotten fruit. His portrait looked down from the altar, stern even in death. And directly beneath that portrait, on a narrow table covered with mourning cloth, lay a silver pen and a document with my name printed on the first line. Temporary control waiver. I stood 6 steps away from it in a black dress I had not chosen, with my father's hand wrapped around my elbow hard enough to bruise. My Uncle Richard leaned close to the front row, murmuring to board members. My stepmother Nadine dabbed the corner of her eye with a lace handkerchief that had not absorbed a single tear. Beside the coffin stood Cecilia Marlowe, my cousin by adoption, and my family's favorite tragedy. She wore a soft gray dress, her face pale, her hands folded as if grief had made her holy. In my first life, this was the moment I broke. I looked at the waiver, heard my father say it was only temporary, heard Cecilia whisper that she did not want anything that belonged to me, and felt every guest in the chapel watching the poor little real granddaughter who had come back too late. I cried. I asked why grandfather's own son could not wait until after the funeral. I called Cecilia a thief. She fainted beautifully beside the coffin. By sunset, the video clip online was not titled "Marlowe Family Mourns Founder." It was titled "Ungrateful Heiress Attacks Grieving Cousin at Funeral." By midnight, I had signed the waiver to repair the family's dignity. By winter, my grandfather's shares were under my uncle's control. By spring, Cecilia was photographed in my grandmother's pearls at the Founders Gala while I was being escorted out through the service entrance. By summer, I learned the truth from a dying lawyer. My grandfather had not left me a simple inheritance. He had left a protected trust with a duress ledger. If any heir was pressured to transfer rights before the formal will reading, each act of pressure would be recorded. If the pressure came from a conditional beneficiary, that beneficiary's gift would shrink. If they presented false evidence, it would shrink again. If they forged a codicil, it would vanish. The will did not only give, it counted. Then I woke up this morning with black ribbon on my bedroom door and the chapel livestream scheduled for 10. Same date, same coffin, same waiver, same father tightening his fingers around my arm because he thought grief made me soft. Same Cecilia looking at me with wet eyes, already waiting for the line where I became the villain. This time, I looked at the document and asked, who ordered the signing table before the will was read? The chapel went quiet, in a way a chapel should have been quiet already. My father, Graham Marlowe, gave me the smile he used for cameras and creditors. Elena, not here. It is already here. I said, on a table, with a pen. A few people shifted in their seats. The live stream camera near the aisle made a faint mechanical sound as it adjusted focus. Good. Let it focus. My Uncle Richard stepped forward. He was my father's older brother. Broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, with the kind of voice that made lies sound like board resolutions. Your grandfather trusted us to keep the company stable. This waiver only lets the family council manage the shares until emotions settle. Whose emotions? His mouth paused. I looked at the paper. Mine? Cecilia took one soft step forward. Elena, please. No one is taking anything from you. Uncle Richard only wants to protect the company. Grandfather loved all of us. Then he would not mind if we wait for his attorney. I said. My father lowered his voice. Do not embarrass me in front of mourners. In my first life. That sentence put a leash around my throat. Do not embarrass me. Do not make a scene. Do not force the family to choose tonight. I felt the old pain rise. And then I let it pass without taking orders from it. Father, I said, you placed a share transfer waiver beside a dead man's coffin before his will was read. I am not the first embarrassing thing in this room. Someone in the third row inhaled sharply. Nadine's handkerchief stopped moving. Cecilia's eyes filled right on cue. I knew you would think I wanted your place. Cecilia whispered, if my staying in this family makes you feel robbed, I can leave after the funeral. There it was. A knife wrapped in silk. In my first life. I grabbed it by the blade. This time, I asked, who said you had to leave? Cecilia blinked. The waiver asks me to give Uncle Richard temporary control. I continued, it does not ask whether you should stay in the house. If the Marlowe family can afford 3 florists, a livestream team, and a signing table at a funeral, it can afford 2 granddaughters. You do not need to vanish for me to own what grandfather left me, unless those 2 things are connected in a way you want to explain. Her tears trembled but did not fall. Behind the first row, Jonah Pierce entered the chapel. He was not dramatic. That was why my grandfather liked him. Jonah was 36, dark-suited, neat, carrying a black leather folder with no gold initials. He was the independent trustee from Pierce and Vale, the law firm my family had spent 10 years mocking as grandfather's museum of cautious men. In my first life. Jonah arrived after I had already signed the waiver. He took one look at the paper, asked whether I had been alone when I signed, and when I said yes because I was ashamed, his face changed. This time, I lifted my voice before anyone could block him. Mr. Pierce, before the service begins, can you confirm whether any beneficiary is required to sign a paper handing control away today? Every head turned. Jonah's eyes moved from me to the table, then to my father, then to the live stream camera. He understood faster than anyone else in the room. No, he said. No beneficiary is required to sign away rights, hand over votes, or give anyone temporary control before the formal reading. My Uncle Richard laughed once. This is unnecessary theater. Jonah opened his folder. On the contrary, it may be a preservation issue. My father stiffened. Jonah. Mr. Marlowe, Jonah said politely, please step away from your daughter's arm. Only then did the room look down. My father's fingers were still wrapped around me. He released me as if my skin had burned him. The chapel camera caught it. Cecilia saw it. Richard saw it. Nadine saw it. More importantly, Jonah saw it and wrote something on a small notepad. Proof Object 1, the waiver beside the coffin. Proof Object 2, my father's hand on my arm. I did not smile. Smiling too early teaches people where the blade is. Jonah turned to the signing table. Who placed this document here? No one answered. The printer log will answer. I said. Richard's eyes cut toward me. The first crack in my first life. I thought revenge meant telling everyone what they had done. I had learned better. Revenge was asking a question while the answer was already recorded somewhere they could not reach. Jonah closed the folder. The service can proceed. The will reading will occur at Marlowe House at 2. Until then, no beneficiary should sign anything, my father said through his teeth. Elena, sit with the family. I looked at the front row. where Cecilia had left an empty seat between herself and Nadine. In my first life. I sat there and felt like a stray dog allowed indoors for bad weather. This time. I walked past them and sat beside May Rowe, my grandfather's housekeeper of 30 years. May smelled faintly of starch and lemon oil. She had raised 3 generations of Marlowes without ever being invited to family photographs. When I sat beside her, her lined hand found mine under the pew. "Good girl," she whispered, inside my coat pocket. My phone vibrated once. A message from Jonah appeared. The will counted 1 lie. I lowered my eyes. The will had begun counting. Part 2. The mourning brooch accused the wrong thief. The funeral service lasted 47 minutes. I knew because I counted every minute Richard was unable to speak about the waiver. My grandfather would have enjoyed that. Augustus Marlowe believed silence made guilty people itch. He used to sit at the head of the dinner table and let a question hang in the air until someone confessed to breaking a vase, hiding a report card, or selling a warehouse too cheaply. He never raised his voice. He simply waited until people filled the silence with the truth. After the burial, guests moved to Marlowe House for the reception. The old estate sat on a hill above the river, all gray stone and ivy, with windows narrow enough to make every room feel like it was keeping secrets. In the main hall, the staff had set tea, black coffee, and small plates of food no one wanted. My family gathered beneath my grandmother's portrait, speaking in low voices that were not low enough. "She planned that," Nadine said. "She has always been difficult," my father replied. "Augustus spoiled her." Richard said, "He thought stubbornness was intelligence." Cecilia stood near the mantel, twisting a handkerchief between her fingers. She looked smaller than everyone else, though she was only 2 inches shorter than I was. That was her gift. She could make herself appear breakable in rooms where other people were about to break someone for her. At noon, the second trap appeared. Nadine gasped. Everyone turned. She was standing beside the glass display cabinet where my grandmother's mourning brooch had been placed before the service. The brooch was an old black diamond set inside white gold, shaped like a small crescent moon. My grandmother had worn it to every funeral and every board crisis. In the original timeline, it disappeared during the reception. Cecilia found it in my coat pocket 10 minutes before the will reading. I panicked, insisted someone had planted it, and looked exactly like a thief. This time. I had checked my pockets at 7 this morning, photographed them empty, and sent the images to Jonah. Nadine pressed one hand to her chest. "The brooch is gone." My father turned toward me too quickly. I looked back at him. "You may want to be slower." He froze. Cecilia whispered, "Aunt Nadine, maybe it was moved for safekeeping." Only family had access to this cabinet. Nadine said, her eyes landed on me. "Elena was beside it before the service." "Was I?" I asked. She faltered. "You walked past it." Walking past a cabinet is not access. Otherwise, half the guests have committed jewelry. May made a small sound beside me. It might have been a cough. It was not a cough. Richard stepped in. "This is not a joke." "Then stop staging it like one." I said, "If the brooch is missing, lock the room, call Jonah, check the cabinet camera, check the key log, and search everyone's coats with witnesses." Nadine looked offended. "You would search your elders?" "I would search myself first." I said, "Fairness is less frightening when you do not intend to cheat it." Cecilia's eyes widened. "Elena, no one said you took it." Your aunt looked at me. My father looked at me. Uncle Richard looked at me. You looked at the floor, which is your way of looking at me without paying taxes on the accusation. This time, May really did cough. Jonah arrived from the library, his black folder still under one arm. "What happened?" Nadine explained in a voice full of wounded dignity. The brooch, the empty display hook, the family access, the implication hanging there like smoke. Jonah listened, then asked, "Who opened the cabinet today?" "I did." Nadine said, "At 9, to place the brooch inside." "Anyone else?" "No." I pointed to the small brass box on the side table. "The cabinet key is there." Jonah walked over, opened the box, and looked inside. 2 keys lay on the velvet. He looked at Nadine. "How many keys exist?" "2, she said. "Then no one used the cabinet key." Richard frowned. "What does that mean?" Jonah did not answer him. He looked at me. "Elena? In my first life, no one had asked me to think. They only asked me to defend. This time." I stepped toward the cabinet. The glass door was closed. The old lock was decorative but functional. The display hook was empty. Beneath the velvet shelf, almost hidden by the wood lip, was a thin black thread. I did not touch it. Someone did not open the cabinet. I said, "Someone pulled the brooch through the back service slit." The room went still. Marlowe House was old enough to have strange details. The display cabinet had once been a silver cabinet. Servants had accessed it from the pantry side through a narrow rear panel, so polished pieces could be set without disturbing guests. Most family members had forgotten the slit existed, because most family members did not know how anything in the house was cleaned. May's face hardened. "The pantry passage was unlocked this morning." Richard snapped. "Are you accusing the staff now?" "No," I said. "I am saying the person who planned this knows the family blames staff when they do not want to blame themselves." May looked at me then. Not grateful. Something sharper. Recognition. Then May did something no one in that house had ever allowed her to do. She stepped into the center of the morning room, still wearing the black house uniform my family liked because it made loyal people look invisible. "Since everyone keeps saying Miss Elena has no feeling," May said, "I would like to say what I have seen." Richard gave a short laugh. "The housekeeper is giving character testimony now?" "No," May said. "I am giving a memory." The room quieted in a way no threat had managed. May looked first at my father. "When Miss Elena was 11, Mr. Graham sent her through the kitchen door during the donor dinner because he said she would make the table awkward. She sat beside the sink and peeled apples with me for 2 hours. She smiled the whole time because she did not want the junior staff to pity her. Every few minutes, laughter came from the dining room. She pretended not to hear it." My father's face changed. Not guilt, calculation. He was trying to remember who had been present that night. May turned to Nadine. "When Mrs. Marlowe said the East guest room was too nice for a child who was not socially ready, Miss Elena moved herself to the attic without asking anyone to carry her boxes. She folded every dress before she packed it. Then she came back downstairs and asked if there was leftover soup because she did not want anyone to know she had cried." Nadine's mouth opened and closed. "And when Mr. Augustus began teaching her the company," May continued, "she kept a notebook of product labels under her mattress. Not jewels, not party invitations. Labels, batch numbers, truck routes. She wanted to know why a shipment spoiled in July and why the warehouse in Albany always smelled of citrus peel. She wanted her grandfather to ask her opinion one day." I looked down because that notebook had been real. Blue cover, bent corner. My first secret that was not pain. May's voice did not rise. And that was why everyone heard it. A child should not have to prove she is family by signing away the only thing her grandfather left her. No one clapped. That would have made it smaller. The silence did the work. Jonah asked for the house security feed. My father objected. Jonah reminded him that the trust paid for the security system, not Graham Marlowe. That ended the objection. 10 minutes later, the footage played on the hall television. At 10:52, while the funeral service was still in progress, Cecilia entered the pantry corridor. She was not alone. My younger cousin Paul, Richard's son, followed her with his phone in one hand. Cecilia looked nervous. Paul looked bored. She pointed toward the back of the display cabinet. He slipped a long ribbon through the rear service slit, hooked the brooch, and pulled it through. Cecilia caught it in her hand, looked toward the hallway, then placed it inside a small black pouch. The room stopped breathing. Cecilia's face went white. I was moving it. Aunt Nadine asked me to make sure it was safe. Nadine said too quickly. I did not. Richard turned on his son. Paul? Paul was 19, handsome in the blank way of boys who have never paid for consequences. Cecilia said Elena had been looking at it. She said if it disappeared before the reading, Uncle Graham would finally understand how unstable Elena was. Cecilia began to cry. Real tears this time. They did not help her. My father looked at me, then looked away. I asked, "Where is the brooch now?" Paul pointed toward the coat room. Of course. Jonah had a staff member bring every coat under witness. The black pouch was inside the pocket of my wool coat, tucked beneath the lining through a small cut someone had made with scissors. In my first life, the moment that pouch appeared, everyone looked at me as if the trial were over. This time, it appeared after the footage. Things have different meanings depending on when truth enters the room. Cecilia whispered. I panicked. No, I said, you prepared. Jonah wrote in his notebook. Richard looked at him. What are you writing? A preservation note. Jonah said, for a family misunderstanding? For heirloom tampering, evidence planting, and attempted pre-reading character impeachment. Those words were not dramatic. That was why they frightened the room. My phone vibrated. The will counted 2 lies. The family money drawer clicked once. I slid the phone back into my pocket before anyone could see. Cecilia pressed both hands over her face. Nadine reached toward her, then hesitated because cameras were still active, and maternal instinct looks different when liability is nearby. Paul muttered that it was just a prank. Richard told him to shut up. May picked up the brooch with gloved hands and placed it on the table beside Jonah. Mrs. Marlowe wore this when she buried her husband. May said quietly, you children used it like a mousetrap. No one answered her. That was the first time all day the silence belonged to someone honest. Part 3. The capacity form was dated before my tears. At 2 o'clock, we entered the library for the formal will reading. The room smelled of leather, dust, and old rain. My grandfather's desk stood near the window, facing the river. Books lined every wall. A portrait of him as a young man hung above the fireplace, his face thinner than, his eyes already impossible to lie to. The family arranged itself like an army pretending to be a portrait. My father and Nadine sat on the left sofa. Richard and his wife sat opposite them. Paul behind his father's chair looking pale and resentful. Cecilia sat near the tea table with a blanket around her shoulders, as if exposure to her own actions had given her a fever. May stood by the door until I pulled a chair beside mine. Sit, I said. Richard frowned. Staff do not attend will readings. Jonah looked up from his documents. Ms. Rowe is named in the will. May went still. That was when my father lost the little patience he had left. This is absurd. My father was ill during the last year. He let employees and lawyers isolate him from his own sons. We should delay the reading until the court reviews his capacity. There it was. Trap 3. In my first life. The capacity challenge came after I signed the waiver. They claimed grandfather had been confused, that I manipulated him, that May and Jonah filtered his visitors. Because I had cried at the funeral and been accused of stealing the brooch. The story sounded possible. A hysterical granddaughter, a greedy housekeeper, a cautious lawyer, an old man on medication. It was ugly. But it worked long enough for them to freeze the trust. This time. Jonah closed his pen. Do you have a medical basis for that claim? Richard placed a folder on the table. We have concerns. I looked at the folder. The label read, Capacity Review Petition. Who drafted that? I asked. My father said, That is not your concern. A petition to declare my grandfather mentally unfit is not my concern? Cecilia whispered. Elena, please do not twist everything. Uncle Graham is grieving. Then he should not have brought paperwork to the grief. Jonah opened the folder. I watched his face. Not the papers. Good lawyers are difficult to read, but every profession has tells. His left eyebrow moved. Only a fraction. Enough. Mr. Marlowe, Jonah said, this petition is dated yesterday. The room shifted. My father stiffened. It was prepared in case today's events showed instability in the administration of the estate. Your father died at 4:18 this morning. Jonah said. No one spoke. The petition was dated before my grandfather died. Even Richard looked at the folder as if it had betrayed him by existing too clearly. I leaned back in my chair. So before grandfather died, before the funeral, before the missing brooch, before the will reading, you prepared a petition saying his will should be delayed because he might not have been mentally clear, my father said. We knew he was declining. May's chair scraped the floor. She stood. For 30 years. May had carried coffee into boardrooms, folded napkins at holiday dinners, and watched Marlowe children grow into adults who mistook service for silence. Her voice was low, but it went through the library like a knife through thread. He was not declining when he told me to stop putting cinnamon in his oatmeal, because Richard only praised it when he wanted money. Paul's mouth fell open. May continued. He was not declining when he remembered the birthday of every warehouse foreman, including the ones his sons forgot. He was not declining when he asked me to remove the spare key from the pantry corridor because he suspected someone had used the old service slit. He was not declining when he told me, if they call me confused after I am dead, play the green file. My father turned white. Jonah looked at May. You have it? May reached into the black handbag on her lap and took out a small green envelope. Richard stood. You had no right to keep private documents. He gave it to me. May said, because he trusted me to keep private documents away from people who confuse right with access. I loved her so much in that moment that it hurt. Jonah opened the envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. He read the note silently, then connected the drive to the library screen. My grandfather appeared. Not the portrait. Not the old man in the coffin. The real one. Thinner than I remembered from childhood, wrapped in a dark cardigan, sitting at the desk behind us. His voice came through dry and steady. If this recording is being played, at least one of my children has claimed I was confused before reading the documents I left. I will make this simple. I know my name. I know the date. I know the value of the voting shares. I know which son sells loyalty by the quarter and which son confuses a company with a wallet. I know my granddaughter Elena is treated like a guest in a house that should have known her name sooner. I know Cecilia is frightened enough to become dangerous if the adults around her keep rewarding performance over character. Cecilia made a sound. On the screen, my grandfather continued. I also know this family will not believe a statement unless it comes with a trap. So I signed 3 capacity evaluations with 3 independent physicians in the last 6 weeks. Jonah has the reports. If any beneficiary presents a capacity challenge dated before my death, the challenge is not forbidden. I am dead, not offended. But the challenger forfeits the right to serve as temporary steward until the court resolves the claim. Richard sat down slowly. My father looked at Jonah. That is not enforceable, Jonah said. It is in the trust instrument. Show me. After the reading. Show me now. Jonah looked at him for a long second. Graham, demanding documents out of order during a recorded trust proceeding is not improving your position. My father shut his mouth. I looked at the petition again. Who signed as proposed temporary steward? No one answered, so I reached for the folder. My father tried to pull it back. Jonah's hand landed on top of it first. No, Jonah said. That one word did what mine could not have done. It reminded the room that someone outside the family had power here. Jonah turned to the last page. Proposed temporary steward, Richard Marlowe. My uncle stared at the table. My father stared at Richard. There it was, the first fracture between conspirators. In my first life, they all pointed in one direction. At me. This time, the documents pointed sideways. My phone vibrated. The will counted 3 lies. The right to control the estate moved farther away from them. I did not look at Cecilia. I did not look at my father. I looked at the screen, where my grandfather's paused face waited with a faint expression that almost looked like amusement. The old man had been dead for 10 hours, and was still better at running a meeting than both of his sons. Part 4. The board tried to borrow my votes. Jonah began the will reading at 2:34 p.m. He did not start with the shares. That annoyed everyone who wanted the shares, which was nearly everyone except May and me. He started with the personal gifts. To May Rowe. My grandfather left the cottage behind the East Orchard. Full ownership, no service obligation attached, plus a lifetime stipend, so she can finally stop pretending retirement is a rumor. May cried silently into a handkerchief. To Paul, he left the vintage motorcycle Paul had wrecked twice and lied about once. With the repair bills deducted from Paul's annual allowance, Paul looked offended, which proved grandfather's aim remained excellent. To Cecilia, he left a funded education trust, therapy expenses covered for 5 years, and the right to live in Marlowe House until age 25, provided she did not participate in any attempt to displace another beneficiary through false accusation, forged evidence, or medical manipulation. Cecilia's blanket slipped from her shoulders. To my father and Richard, he left company money they could keep only if they behaved. No voting control, no authority to manage my inheritance, and 3 sentences that made the library colder. My sons may receive comfort from the tree. They may not hold the axe. Richard laughed without humor. He always loved poetry when he was stealing authority. Jonah continued. Then came my name. To my granddaughter, Elena Marlowe. I leave controlling voting interest in Marlowe Foods through the Augustus Marlowe Protective Trust, subject to independent trustee oversight until age 25, or until she completes the board readiness program specified in Schedule C. Nadine dropped her teacup. The sound was small, but everyone heard it. My father stood, absolutely not. There was no pretending anymore. Grief had taken off its coat and revealed appetite underneath. She is 22, he said. She has never run a company. She spent half her childhood outside this house because my father was angry with me. She cannot hold controlling interest. She does not manage operations tomorrow. Jonah said, She holds protected voting interest with trustee oversight. There is a difference. Richard leaned forward. And if she voluntarily lets the family council use her votes? Jonah looked at him. I almost admired Richard's persistence. A lesser man would have waited 10 minutes before trying the same trap under a new hat. She may not lend out her votes during the first 90 days after the reading. Jonah said, My father turned to me. Elena, listen to me. You do not want this burden. Your grandfather used you to punish us. There it was, the softer blade. I folded my hands. What do you want me to do? The room leaned in. My father heard surrender because he needed to sign a 90-day paper letting Richard and me use your votes while we evaluate the legal situation. The will says I cannot. Families resolve things beyond paper. That is what worries me. Richard's phone buzzed. Then my father's. Then Nadine's. Something had moved outside the room. Jonah checked his own phone and frowned. There is an emergency board call scheduled in 15 minutes, my father said. Necessary? By whom? Richard answered. By the board chair. I looked at him. You are the board chair. Exactly. He stood and buttoned his jacket. The company cannot sit under uncertainty because a sentimental old man wrote an emotional document. May's eyes flashed. I touched her wrist under the table. Not yet. In my first life. The board call happened after the waiver. Richard walked in with my signed document, announced temporary control. And the board accepted it because no one wanted a public family fight. This time, he had no waiver. But he had a new plan. Declare uncertainty, borrow my votes under an emergency rule, and later make the temporary measure permanent. The board call opened on the library screen. 12 faces appeared in squares. Some looked solemn, some looked curious. 2 looked like they had been dragged away from golf. Richard began before anyone could ask why the family was still in mourning clothes. The Marlowe family has discovered serious concerns regarding the founder's testamentary decisions and the readiness of the named heir. For the protection of shareholders, I propose an emergency continuity resolution granting the current board chair temporary voting discretion over the protected shares until legal review concludes. That sounded professional enough to make theft wear a tie. The oldest board member, Helen Chow, spoke first. Has the named heir agreed? Richard glanced at me. Elena understands the seriousness. I raised my hand slightly. I understand that I have not agreed. Several board members turned their eyes toward me. My father whispered, Do not. I ignored him. May I ask what document supports this emergency resolution? Richard smiled thinly. Board discretion during founder transition. What clause? His smile tightened. The general continuity provision, he said. Can someone display it? The corporate secretary, a woman named Priya Sain, appeared in the lower corner of the screen. She looked nervous. I can pull the company rulebook, Richard said. That is unnecessary, Helen Chow said. Pull them. I liked her immediately. Priya shared the bylaw page. The continuity provision allowed temporary operational leadership when a founder died without clear voting succession. It did not apply when a trust instrument named a voting holder and trustee. The board read in silence. I asked, Who drafted the emergency resolution? Priya swallowed. It was uploaded this morning. At what time? She looked at Richard. He gave her nothing. 8:27 a.m., she said. The funeral service had begun at 10, before the will reading. I said, Helen Chow's mouth became a line. Richard said, Preparedness is not conspiracy. No, I agreed. But preparedness that assumes I will be declared unready before the will is read before I speak to the board and before any legal review is at least very ambitious. One of the golf men coughed. My father said, "Elena, you are humiliating the family." I looked at the screen. "Board members, can you see the pressure being applied in this room?" No one moved. Jonah stepped into frame. "For the record, yes. As independent trustee, I object to this emergency paper. It is pressure before the reading, and it is an attempt to borrow Elena's votes before she can answer freely." Richard exploded. "You are a lawyer, not a king." "Correct," Jonah said. "That is why I brought documents." He shared the relevant trust clause, there, in dry legal language. Was the mechanism my family had not believed would ever matter. Anyone who tries to take, borrow, redirect, or quietly control Elena's protected shares in the first 90 days without trustee approval triggers a pressure event. Their money from the trust may be locked while the trustee reviews what happened. The board read it. Richard stopped breathing normally. My phone vibrated. The will counted 4 lies. The trust locked another drawer. This time. I looked at the message long enough for my father to see the light from the screen. "What is that?" he demanded. "The will counting," Cecilia whispered. "Counting what?" I looked at her. "You will know if you keep helping them." Part 5. The fake will entered the Gala. By 6 o'clock, the family had stopped pretending we were only mourning. They divided the house into rooms of strategy. My father and Richard disappeared into the study. Nadine called 3 people and cried differently for each. Paul smoked behind the garage until May sent a gardener to tell him my grandfather had banned smoking near the citrus trees, and death had not changed that. Cecilia stayed in the blue sitting room, pale and silent, except when someone important walked by. Then she looked smaller. Jonah advised me to leave for the night. "The formal record is strong," he said. "You do not need to remain available for fresh misconduct. They will not wait until morning." I said. He looked at me carefully. "You sound certain." In my first life. I did not know about the fake codicil until the Founders' Memorial Gala 3 weeks later. By then, I had signed the waiver, been accused of theft, and been painted as unstable. Richard produced a second document in front of donors and board members, a codicil supposedly written by my grandfather, leaving control to the granddaughter who preserved family harmony, meaning Cecilia. It took months to challenge, and by then the company had moved without me. This time, I had not given them weeks, so they moved faster. At 6:40, Nadine entered the sitting room with red eyes and a strange calm. "Elena, the family is holding a private remembrance dinner. You should attend. It will show unity." "Will there be food or documents?" Her mouth tightened. "Do you think everything is a trap?" "No, some things are bait." She left without answering. The remembrance dinner was held in the ballroom. Because Marlowes cannot whisper unless chandeliers are watching, the long table had been reset with candles and dark flowers. Family, board members still in town, 2 major suppliers, and several donors had been invited. It was smaller than the funeral reception, but more dangerous. These were not mourners. These were people who could move money. Cecilia entered late. She wore black. Not funeral black. Performance black. Simple dress, pearls, hair pinned low, eyes bare of makeup so tears would look honest. In her hands was a cream envelope tied with gray ribbon. My father stood before dinner. Cecilia has something our father entrusted to her. Jonah's chair scraped softly. "Graham." My father ignored him. "Given today's hostile handling of the official reading, we feel morally obligated to hear all evidence of Augustus's true intention." Cecilia looked at me. Elena, I did not want to do this. Then don't. She flinched, because she had expected me to say, "How could you?" or "That is mine." Simple refusal is difficult to act against. Richard stepped forward. Read it. Cecilia opened the envelope with trembling fingers. This is a letter Grandfather gave me 2 months ago. He said if Elena returned and the family fell into conflict, I should reveal it only when necessary. Convenient, I said. My father snapped. Enough! Cecilia began reading. My beloved family. If Elena proves unable to carry the Marlowe name with grace, I ask that Cecilia, who has shown tenderness and loyalty, be trusted with family control. Blood alone does not make an heir. Harmony must prevail over entitlement. The words sounded almost like my grandfather if you had only heard him from another room and disliked him. Nadine began crying. Several guests looked moved. One supplier nodded, as if Harmony had ever paid an invoice. Jonah held out a hand. I need to examine the original. Cecilia clutched it. Grandfather gave it to me. Then you can give it to his trustee. I am afraid you will hide it. There it was, the turn. Make the lawyer look biased. Make me look threatened. Make Cecilia look brave. In my first life, it worked because I shouted, "This time." I lifted my water glass and took a sip. The room waited. I set the glass down. Cecilia, what pen did Grandfather use? She blinked. What? He wrote personal notes in fountain pen. Which one? I don't remember. What paper? Cream stationery. From which desk? Her eyes flickered. I turned to May. May, where did Grandfather keep his cream stationery? May said, he stopped using cream stationery last winter. The paper mill changed the fiber. He said it bled ink like an emotional cousin. One of the donors choked on his wine. Cecilia's cheeks flushed. Maybe he had old paper. Maybe. I said, Jonah, does the trust mention post-reading letters? Jonah's mouth was very still. Yes, Richard said. Of course you would say that. Jonah opened the trust document. Any beneficiary presenting a testamentary writing, codicil, instruction letter, or purported expression of founder intent after the formal reading must surrender the original for forensic hold. If the document is determined to be forged, materially altered, or knowingly presented without reasonable provenance, the presenter and any sponsor beneficiary forfeit all conditional gifts not protected for basic support. The room did not move. I looked at Cecilia. Who sponsored you? Her fingers tightened around the paper. My father said, This is intimidation. No, Jonah said. This is the clause your father wrote for exactly this situation. Richard laughed. Convenient that the dead man predicted everything. I looked at him. Not everything, just you. That one landed. Cecilia's eyes filled. Elena, why do you want to destroy me? I don't, I said. That is why I am asking questions before Jonah sends the letter for forensics. You still have a chance to say who gave it to you. For the first time all day, her tears looked young rather than strategic. She looked at Nadine. Nadine's face changed. My father stood so fast his chair hit the floor. Cecilia. Too late. The room saw the line travel from Cecilia's fear to Nadine's guilt to my father's command. Jonah held out his hand again. The letter. Cecilia did not move. May walked to her, not harshly, not gently either. She stopped in front of Cecilia and spoke in the voice she used when we were children and someone had broken something expensive. Give it here. Cecilia gave it to her. May carried the letter to Jonah. He placed it in a clear evidence sleeve. For the record, Jonah said. "The document is surrendered at 6:58 p.m. in the presence of family members, board observers, and guests." My phone vibrated. The will counted 5 lies. The fake page of the will had opened its own trap. But the surprise was not over. Jonah looked at the envelope under the light and frowned. "This stationery has a watermark." He held it up. The mark was faint but visible. Marlowe Centennial Foundation. The foundation stationery had been printed for the Centennial campaign. 3 weeks after my grandfather's stroke, 4 months after the date written on Cecilia's letter, Nadine sat down slowly. My father closed his eyes. Cecilia covered her mouth. I looked at the fake will, then at the people who had built their courage around paper that could not survive a lamp. "That," I said, "is why grandfather loved boring details." Part 6. The house staff testified before the family. The forged letter broke the dinner. No one announced it. The room simply lost the ability to pretend the candles were decorative. Guests excused themselves in careful voices. Board members asked Jonah for copies of the preservation notices. Suppliers suddenly remembered early mornings. Within 20 minutes, the ballroom held only family: May, Jonah, and the shame they had not managed to escort out. Cecilia sat with both hands around a glass of water. She had stopped crying. That frightened my father more than tears would have. Tears could be used. Silence belonged to the person holding it. Nadine whispered. "I only wanted to protect the family," May said. "People keep saying that today. It never seems to mean feeding anyone." Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Why is she still here?" I looked at him. "Because grandfather named her in the will. A cottage does not give a servant the right to sit in judgment of family." May stood for 1 second. I thought she would leave. Instead, she walked to the sideboard, picked up the old silver dinner bell, and rang it once. The sound cut through the ballroom. 2 footmen appeared at the door out of pure habit. Behind them stood the cook, the gardener, and the driver who had brought my grandfather to dialysis. They had not gone far. Staff never go far when a family is breaking. They only stand where they can be blamed efficiently. May looked at Jonah. "Mr. Pierce, is the staff allowed to give statements?" Jonah nodded. "If they are relevant." Richard laughed. "Statements about what? Soup?" The driver, Tomas Vale, stepped forward. "About the day Mr. Graham told me to take Miss Elena to the east gate instead of the front entrance because donors were visiting and he did not want questions about where she had been living." My father went still. The cook, Mrs. Bellamy, spoke next. "About Mrs. Nadine ordering separate place cards for family dinners. Miss Cecilia sat with the family. Miss Elena sat near the tutor until Mr. Augustus noticed and moved her himself." Nadine whispered. "That was years ago." The gardener said. "About Mr. Richard asking whether the old man still locked the study drawer where he kept the trust files." Richard's face darkened. "Careful." May turned to him. "We have been careful for 30 years. It did not improve you." I felt something in my chest loosen so suddenly, I had to look down. In my first life, I thought I had no witnesses. I had only family stories told by people who wanted me small. I did not understand that houses remember through the people forced to keep them running. Doors remember who slams them. Kitchens remember who eats. Drivers remember who is hidden at side gates. Cecilia looked at the staff, then at me. "I did not know all of that." "You knew enough," I said quietly. She flinched. That was fair. Not cruel. Fair. May took a folded paper from her apron pocket. Mr. Augustus asked me to keep this, too. Richard made a sound like a man running out of walls. Jonah accepted the paper and opened it. It was not legal language. It was my grandfather's handwriting, sharp and impatient. May speak, if they call it gossip. Remind them, gossip is what powerful people call testimony when it comes from downstairs. May laughed once. Then she cried. I did too, though I turned my face before my father could use it. My father saw anyway. For the first time all day, he did not look angry. He looked old. Elena, he said. I raised one hand. Do not. He stopped. I wanted an apology from him in my first life. I wanted it so badly, I signed away my own future for the chance to be held by a father who had never learned how. This time, I did not want an apology while the documents were still warm. I wanted distance. I wanted air. I wanted him to understand that regret after failure is not the same as love before harm. Cecilia set down her glass. Aunt Nadine wrote the letter, she said. Nadine made a small, broken sound. Cecilia continued, staring at the table. Uncle Graham knew. Uncle Richard knew there would be a letter, but not what it said. Paul helped with the brooch because I asked him. I told him Elena had taken things from me. That was not true. I was afraid if she inherited, everyone would finally admit I had only been kept because she was missing. No one interrupted. She looked at me. I thought if you looked unstable, I would look safe. Did it work? I asked. Her face crumpled. No. That was enough for that moment. Jonah wrote the statement. Cecilia signed it. Nadine refused to sign anything. My father said he needed counsel. Richard said the whole day was contaminated by trustee bias. Paul asked whether his allowance was gone, which answered several questions about his character. At 8:15 p.m., Jonah read the preliminary effect of the duress ledger. Graham Marlowe, trust money suspended pending review. Richard Marlowe, right to control estate matters suspended. Trust money frozen pending review. Nadine Marlowe, no direct trust gift, but household residence rights subject to trustee review because of forged document involvement. Paul Marlowe, discretionary allowance suspended pending cooperation. Cecilia Marlowe, education and therapy trust preserved. Residence rights suspended pending safety review. All discretionary family position benefits frozen. Elena Marlowe, protected voting interest intact. May Rowe, cottage transfer unaffected. The room listened like people hearing weather reports after building houses out of paper. My phone vibrated one final time. The will counted 6 lies. The final count was ready. I looked at the message, then at my grandfather's portrait above the fireplace. Almost there. Part 7. The will counted their lies. The final certification happened the next morning in the company auditorium. Jonah wanted a smaller room. Richard's counsel wanted a delay. My father wanted privacy. The board wanted certainty. I wanted the same thing my family had used against me all day. Witnesses. Marlowe Foods employees filled the first 10 rows. Warehouse managers, office staff, brand directors, plant supervisors, drivers in work jackets, old employees who had known my grandfather before his suits became expensive. The board sat on the left. Family sat on the right. May sat beside me in the front row wearing the same black dress and a new expression. One that looked suspiciously like retirement beginning to sound possible. Cecilia came too. She wore no pearls, no gray performance dress, just a plain black sweater and a face that looked as if she had not slept. Nadine sat 2 seats away from her, rigid and silent. My father stared forward. Richard spoke quietly with counsel until Jonah walked to the podium. On the screen behind him was one line: Augustus Marlowe Protective Trust, Duress Ledger Certification. Jonah did not dramatize it. He would have made a terrible actor, and an excellent knife. The papers Augustus Marlowe left do not punish people for disagreeing. Jonah said, "They punish people for trying to make someone helpless before she can answer." The ledger counts simple things: pressure before the reading, planted evidence, calling a dead man confused before he died, trying to borrow Elena's votes, bringing out a fake extra page of the will, and silencing witnesses. He clicked the remote. Event 1. Control waiver placed beside founder's coffin before will reading. Event 2. Mourning brooch removed through service slit and planted in Elena Marlowe's coat. Event 3. Capacity petition dated before founder's death and before formal reading. Event 4. Emergency board paper uploaded to borrow Elena's votes before trust succession was disclosed. Event 5. Forged founder letter presented at remembrance dinner. Event 6. Staff witness history relevant to air isolation and document access. The list looked so neat on the screen that the ugliness became undeniable. In my first life, each incident had felt like a separate disaster. One rumor, one accusation, one signature, one bad article, one fake letter. I had spent months trying to defend myself from pieces. My grandfather's final gift was not simply power, it was arrangement. He put the pieces in one frame and made everyone look. Jonah continued, "This count does not replace a court. It decides what happens inside the Marlowe Trust. As of this morning, Elena keeps the votes her grandfather left her. Graham and Richard cannot borrow them, manage them, or call themselves temporary controllers. Their company money is locked until review. The board is notified that any attempt to treat someone else as Elena's voice violates the trust and the company rulebook." Helen Chow stood from the board row. "The board acknowledges receipt," Richard's counsel whispered urgently. Richard did not stand. That was new. Yesterday, he stood too much. Jonah looked toward me. "Elena, the founder left a final statement for you to decide whether to play." My throat tightened. I had not known about this in either life. May squeezed my hand once. I nodded. The screen changed. My grandfather appeared again, sitting at his desk in the cardigan, looking thinner, tired, alive. "Elena," he said. "Just my name. Not heir, not granddaughter, not tool. My name. If you are seeing this, then I am dead. And my family has been very busy proving me right. I am sorry for that. I should have protected you earlier, not cleverly. Clever protection is still late protection when a child grows up wondering why adults need documents to behave." My eyes burned. Behind me, the auditorium was silent. I built the trust because I knew they would try to make you choose between peace and yourself. I want you to know, peace bought with your erasure is not peace. It is rent paid to people who will raise the price. You do not have to become cruel to survive this family. You also do not have to become convenient. Ask questions. Keep records. Eat when May tells you to. Do not let Richard near a blank voting paper. And if Graham ever says he did his best, remind him best is not a feeling. It is a result. Someone in the back gave a shocked laugh and then covered it. My father lowered his head. On screen, grandfather's face softened. As for Cecilia, if she is in the room, listen carefully. Fear is not a crime. What you do with it can become one. If you want a life that is yours, stop auditioning for protection and learn to stand without stealing another girl's floor. I have left you enough to begin, not enough to hide. Cecilia broke then, quietly. No performance. Just a young woman hearing the truth after wasting years rehearsing around it. The video ended with my grandfather looking directly at the camera. The will has counted what it needed to count. The living may now decide whether to keep lying after the math is done. The screen went black. For a long time, no one moved. Then May stood. She did not clap. This was not a show. She simply walked to the aisle, turned to the employees, and said, "There is coffee in the back. Mr. Marlowe would have wanted everyone caffeinated before gossip." The auditorium exhaled. People stood. Some came to shake my hand. Some avoided my eyes. Board members spoke to Jonah. Richard left with counsel. Paul followed him, still looking like a boy searching for someone else to blame. Nadine walked past me without speaking. My father stopped in front of me. For a moment, I saw the man I had wanted in my first life. Tired, proud, frightened, almost sorry. "Elena," he said, "I do not know how to fix this." "Start by not asking me to." He closed his eyes. It was not forgiveness. It was not punishment. It was a boundary. And for the first time, he did not step over it. Cecilia approached after he left. Her face was bare and swollen from crying. "I am sorry," she said. I looked at her for a while. In my first life, I dreamed of that sentence. I imagined it would feel like a door opening. It felt smaller than that. Useful, maybe. Late, definitely. "Are you sorry because you lost?" I asked. She flinched. Then she thought, that mattered. "Partly," she said, her voice shook. "And partly because I saw the footage and realized I looked exactly like the person I was afraid you would think I was." That was the first honest thing she had said to me in 2 lives. "Keep the education trust," I said. "Use the therapy. Do not come back to Marlowe House until you can enter a room without looking for someone to replace." She nodded, tears falling again. This time. I let them be tears, not evidence, not weather, just water. By afternoon, the news had spread through the company, and then through the city. The headline was cleaner than the ones that ruined me before. Marlowe Trust confirms founder succession after attempted family vote grab. Boring. Beautifully boring. No one called me hysterical. No one called me ungrateful. No one used a cropped clip of me beside a coffin. The full livestream existed. The printer logs existed. The cabinet footage existed. The forged letter sat in an evidence sleeve. The board minutes held my refusal in plain language. The staff statements had signatures. Truth, I had learned, does not always win because it is truth. Sometimes it wins because someone labels it properly before liars can rearrange the room. That evening, I returned to Marlowe House not through the side gate, but through the front doors. May walked beside me. The foyer looked different without fear polishing every surface. My grandfather's portrait still hung above the stairs, stern as ever. I looked up at him. "You were very annoying," May said. He considered that a professional advantage. I laughed for the first time in 2 days. We went to the kitchen because neither of us wanted the dining room. May made toast. I made tea, badly. She watched me put leaves into water that was too hot and said, "Your grandfather left you a company and not one useful domestic skill. I can read the company rule book. Can you butter bread evenly? I am the controlling voting heir. So no." I laughed again, harder this time. Outside, the river moved under the dark. Inside, the house was still full of consequences. My father would face review. Richard would fight. Cecilia would either learn or not. Nadine would pretend silence was dignity. The board would test me. The company would watch to see whether a 22-year-old could carry a name older than her mistakes. I was not suddenly safe. But I was not alone in the rain. Not signing my future away beside a coffin. Not begging people to believe me while they held scissors near my coat. The will had counted their lies. Now I could begin counting my own choices. The next morning, Jonah sent me the board readiness schedule. It was cruelly thick. Finance, operations, supply chain, governance, food safety, union history, brand risk. My grandfather had apparently believed revenge should come with homework. At the bottom of Jonah's email was a note. Your grandfather wrote, "If she complains about the reading list, tell her good. It means she is alive to complain." I stared at the screen for a long time, then smiled. "Fine," I whispered. "I am alive." Then I opened the first file. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.